Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are up to Unit 2, Lesson 7. And in this lesson, as it says here, we're going to learn about how to generate a polynomial, a possible polynomial, when we're given its x-intercepts. In other words, if I tell you what the x-intercepts are of a polynomial, how do I generate a polynomial based on that? And it turns out it's a very simple way. We're going to convert each x-intercept to a factor by using that switching the sign trick that we talked about in a previous lesson, but we're going to do it in reverse. So for example here, if my x-intercept is -1, the factor corresponding to that x-intercept, notice I switch the sign. It's going to be x plus 1. If my x-intercept is 3, then my possible factor is going to be x minus 3. So again, I switch the sign. Same thing if the x-intercept is 0, only difference is there's no such thing as positive and negative 0. So if you have an x-intercept of 0, then the factor corresponding to that would just be x. The one that's kind of tricky is when I have an x-intercept that's a fraction. So if I have a fraction, I can use that switching the sign trick. So if I have an x-intercept of 1/2, I can make it x minus 1/2. But what we really want to do is we want to write our factors without fractions. So if you end up with a fraction like this, all you're going to do is you're going to take the denominator. In this case, the denominator is 2 because 1/2. And you're going to take that denominator and you're going to multiply both terms of the corresponding factor by that denominator. So notice what I did here is I took x minus 1/2 and I took the denominator and I multiplied both terms of x minus 1/2 by 2 by that denominator. So 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times negative 1/2 is -1. So that's what we're going to do when we end up with a x-intercept that is a fraction. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and go to the examples now. So write a possible equation for a polynomial whose graph has the following horizontal or x-intercepts. Check your equation using technology. So, number 1, I have an x-intercept of 4. Okay, so because there's only one x-intercept, I'm only going to have one factor. So if my x-intercept is 4, my factor is going to be x minus 4, and that is my polynomial. Now it says to check using technology. So what if I go to Desmos and I type in x minus 4? Let's see what happens. If I type in x minus 4, does it have an x-intercept of 4? It indeed does. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, I have an x-intercept of 0. So remember we talked about in the lesson notes, if the x-intercept is 0, then we can say our corresponding factor is just simply x. And then an x-intercept of 4, then my factor would be x minus 4, just like in number 1. So my possible equation for a polynomial would be x times x minus 4. And if I check that using Desmos, let's switch that. So x times x minus 4. Notice it has x-intercepts at 0 and at 4. It indeed works. Okay. Number 3. Now I have 3 x-intercepts. I have -2, 0, and 4. So for -2, my x-intercept is going to be x plus 2. Remember, switch the signs. For 0, my factor is going to be x. And for 4, my factor is going to be x minus 4. So x plus 2 times x minus 4. Let's check that on Desmos. So x plus 2 times x minus 4. Was that the right polynomial? Yes. So notice it has x-intercepts at -2, 0, and 4. -2, 0, and 4. So it works. Okay. Number 4. Now I have -4, 0, and 2. So for -4, my factor is going to be x plus 4. For 0, my factor is going to be x. And for 2, my factor is going to be x minus 2. Okay? And that's it. And if we were to graph this on Desmos, you could do this if you want. If you were to graph this on Desmos, it would indeed have those x-intercepts. Lastly, number 5. So I have an x-intercept of -5. So my corresponding factor is going to be x plus 5. I have an x-intercept of 1/2, so it's going to be x minus 1/2. But remember, we talked about before, when I have a fraction here, I want to take both terms of this factor and I'm going to multiply it by the denominator. So 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times -1/2 is going to be -1. So we end up with 2x minus 1. And then the third x-intercept is 3, so that's going to be x minus 3. So if I put that together, my polynomial is going to be x plus 5, 2x minus 1, and x minus 3. This one I am going to put on Desmos because I want you to see it. So x plus 5, two x minus 1, and x minus 3. Okay, here's our graph. Okay, and if we look at the x-intercepts, we got -5, +1/2, and +3. -5, +1/2, +3. -5, +1/2, +3. So that's all we're doing when we're taking x-intercepts and we want to create a polynomial that has those x-intercepts. We just create all of the corresponding factors and then put them together. That is it for this lesson.